Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks for sticking around for the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. 412-575-2600 is the number. We're taking your phone calls tonight. We have a lot to talk about. The Pirates had a day off. They're in L.A. for a couple late games starting tomorrow. For the Pirates, they need to win 2 out of 3 here on out every series to even think about a wild card appearance. Right now, they're way out of contention. You might have to sweep the Padres. But, you know, the big story is the Steelers right now, and the couple positions open, maybe a couple starting positions they've opened. You could say right tackle. There could be a competition right there between Dylan Cook and Broderick Jones, maybe Spencer Anderson with Hoffman at right guard. I would say that they're the only 2 starting positions that could be available. Y.E. Black looks like he's going to be the centerpiece of that defensive line. I think he has that locked down. Then the third wide receiver, not really a starting position. I think Roman Wilson has that battle not won yet, but I think maybe with another good performance by Jeremy Bernard, that could make that interesting right there. But so I would imagine that Chris Mueller's on with me tonight, and Chris, I would imagine that Mike McCarthy knows 48 guys definitely that are going to make this team. There's probably 5 guys, 5 positions, 5 roster spots that are open, which are battles between a few different guys.
Well, the question, Rich, is whether or not one of those 48 that he knows are going to make the roster, whether or not it's Will Howard, basically, right?
Yeah,
that's the
a
thing
good
we'll
question.
Find out tomorrow. I remain sort of frustrated by the Steelers' obstinate approach to quarterback and this idea that they have to keep 4 if they really like Will Howard, because heaven forbid they go into the season with an unproven backup for a 42-year-old. I get all the game theory stuff that people want to put out there about Aaron Rodgers is probably a good bet to get hurt just because he's frankly too old to stay healthy. But there are other teams that are going to go with a completely untested rookie backup. And I know Ty Simpson was a first-round pick, but the Rams are going to go with him backing Matt Stafford. And I just think that in the Steelers' case, if Will Howard plays really well tomorrow, and more to the point, Rich, if he looks like a guy that can get them in and out of the huddle crisply, if he doesn't look overwhelmed by the mental side of the game, if he still looks like a guy where the game is slow for him, and that's in a good way, then I just don't know why you wouldn't want to dangle Mason Rudolph out there to what you know is going to be an NFL that has at least one quarterback opening that somebody wants to fill with a veteran.
All right, so who do you have a better chance of trading? I don't know if you can get much for either one of those guys. Is it Mason Rudolph or Will Howard? If Will Howard has a good showing, we heard Mike McCarthy just say a little bit ago that, Howard had a slow start. That's one of the things he's going to be looking at. Does Howard come out and fast and seize this opportunity? I agree with you. I feel like this is a huge game for Will Howard. He has the ultimate chance of winning a roster spot in this game.
Well, I don't think you can trade Will Howard to start there. Just so many teams, every team in the league had a shot on him through 5 rounds of last year's draft. Nobody took one. I don't get the sense that there is a lot of intrigue outside of Pittsburgh about him. I think there are a lot of guys that maybe have his resume minus the national championship at Ohio State and maybe minus playing at Ohio State in general, who wouldn't get a second look from the NFL. The traits are not off the charts, so I don't think he's tradable. I think Mason Rudolph, again, in an NFL where not every team and not every coach and not every front office is in the same spot, where there are going to be people fighting to keep their jobs, Rich. If you're somebody who's in one of those boats, and I think you're probably going to see a team like this tomorrow night in Aaron Glenn and the Jets, if you're a head coach who thinks he has to keep his job by winning, and you're one quarterback injury away from being really up the creek without a paddle, then I think trading a late-round pick for a guy like Mason Rudolph that at least has a little bit of a resume, up and down though it may be, makes a lot more sense. So he's tradable. I think not for very much, but I don't look at Howard as a tradable commodity whatsoever.
Don't you think the Jets are more than one quarterback away, though? I mean, why would they?
I'm saying that's how. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's how they would look at it, though. Oh, we've got to win this year. It's a very impatient owner, and if Geno Smith goes down, if you're Aaron, I'm just saying, if you're looking at it from Aaron Glenn's point of view, he would say, give me anybody that I can trust behind my starting quarterback because I want to keep my job.
All right, 412-575-2600. Now to our Penn West University question of the night. Would you give Joey Porter Jr. $30 million per season? We saw the tweet. That'll be our tweet of the night here in a couple minutes. But that teams are calling about him. Do you pay him $30 million? I'm in the no percentage here with the 71% of our audience right now. Obviously, the Steelers are in the no portion of that. I hope they find some middle ground. I'd like to see him around here for a while.
I mean, I think he's a top 10 to 12 corner, but $30 million a year is not what you pay for the 10th or so best cornerback in the league. I think 26 to 28 million is probably what you pay for that guy. And I understand people could say, it's the NFL, the cap goes up all the time, it's only $2 or $3 million difference, but that's still one player maybe at some other position. That's still maybe two players, depending on who it is. And I wouldn't go to 30. I think he feels like that's where he should be valued. I disagree with it. I think that should be reserved for like your top 3 to 5 guys right now. That's how that position's going. I don't think you can handle it like quarterback. So as much as I think Porter Jr. deserves a new deal, it can't be entirely on his terms. I would say no, Rich.
And plus, the Steelers, how much more money can they spend on that defense? I know you're going to lose Jalen Ramsey's $21 million next year. But you awful lot of money tied up with
Cam Hayward. I mean, is this it for Cam Hayward? I know if Cam gets wind that I'm saying that, even suggesting that, Cam's gonna be like raging through a brick wall to play for 5 more All-Pro level years. But at some point, you do wonder about a future without venerable players like that, and then I guess it would become more palatable. But it is more money you'd be spending on this defense. Again, Porter earned a lot of it. I think he's, like I said, $27, $28 million a year corner. It's just 30 is a big number, and it sends a big sign. Even though I know that Benton deal, Rich, I know you're talking about like spending on your defense. Keanu Benton, what is it, 14 million of it's guaranteed, nothing beyond this year. That's more of a team-friendly thing, it looks like.
Yeah, and 18 million, that's not that much more than per year. That's not much more than Cam Hayward would be making. Also, you got to figure out the linebacking situation, because you can't have a guy that's making 25 million be a rotational player. We're talking about Nick Herbig right there. But we got to take a break. We'll have much more Steelers conversation coming up next. 412-575-2600 is the number. Back in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh, and this is our Xfinity tweet of the night, what I referred to just a little bit ago from Jordan Schultz, who is an NFL insider. Obviously has a lot of connections with general managers and agents and players, and maybe he got this from an agent to put this out there. But it says Steelers cornerback Joey Porter Jr. is a name multiple teams around the NFL have wondered about as a potential trade target. Per sources, JPJ is in the final year of his rookie contract, and with where the cornerback market is, teams have wondered if Pittsburgh could ultimately be open to move on from or with the Pro Bowl caliber corner. What would it take to trade Joey Porter Jr. is maybe the big question right now. And a team would want some kind of deal in place before you traded him. And it would have to be, I would think the Steelers would want a first-round draft pick in return, something, and maybe a player if you were even considering trading this guy. But obviously a team wouldn't trade for Joey Porter Jr. on a one-year deal unless they had some kind of a long-term extension in place with them, Chris. I think this was planted from an agent, maybe to get talks going again or something to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Schultz would be connected with a lot of these agents, and I do think that that's a savvy sort of analysis of the tweet that he's putting out there by you. But if I were to humor the idea of it overall, I would say you start at a first-round pick. I know that the fact that he would have to get a new deal from that new team would probably take the draft capital price down, but he's a first-round player. Like, I think very few Steelers fans, I'd say, would put him outside the top 15 of NFL corners. And if you think he's more like a top 10 or so guy, well, the 10 best corners in the league, to me, are all worth a first-round pick unless they're at the twilight of their career and they're just, kind of defying father time. But if you have a guy who's, relatively speaking, in his mid-20s, so in his prime, and he's been as good as Porter has been for the last 2 years especially, that starts at a first-round pick. Is it, 2 firsts, I think, for Sauce Gardner in that blockbuster deal? I don't think he's worth that. You could get a first and maybe a mid-round pick, though, for him if a team was desperate enough for corner help and willing to sign him.
Yeah, you at least need a first. There's no question about it. Just to play devil's advocate, Steve Banco, my producer on this show, our producer on this show, and I were going over numbers between Joey Porter Jr. and a guy like Denzel Ward. And Porter Jr. has better numbers, frankly, and Ward is making $30+ million a year. Can't you look at that and identify that and say, hey, and I'm sure that's what Porter's doing, this is why I need to make $30 million a year because I'm better than this guy?
He can certainly say that. I think in the quarterback market, that's how it worked for a long time. Like Matt Stafford would set the record. I think he set it at least once or twice for highest paid quarterback in the league before he had ever been anything more than a numbers guy where he was just putting up big stats. Denzel Ward has also done it for a long time. I know he's getting to that tail end age where those corners usually fall off. I do think, though, if you have a pretty proven record of being a relative shutdown guy, and in Ward's case he does, as long as he's healthy, you're going to get a good deal. I would say this. The wild card for me here is this. I still think, and people can disagree with me on this, that the Steelers very much feel like they got a major find in Asante Samuel Jr., that they rolled the dice on an injury risk, and that a guy with some real pedigree who had performed very well up until his injury is now back to more or less full strength. And if that's what they think they've got, then they're within a year of each other in the age curve. I think they just might be more willing to play hardball with or part with Porter than people think because they might feel they have a ready-made replacement already on the roster.
Yeah, Dalen Everett had a good camp. They really like him. You look at a guy like Jamel Dean as well that's on the roster right now. Let's go out to Dave out in Munhall. How you doing, Dave? You there?
Yeah, I think they should sign Asante Samuel to a modest, maybe $15 million 3-year contract.
Well, if he'll do it, he's on a prove-it deal right now. I mean, the Steelers gave him a chance when no one else really wanted to. They brought him in, then they re-signed him. They like him. He's had a good camp. He's really proven. He's really proven he's worth the deal that they signed him to. Chris.
Does he mean like $15 million per year for 3 years?
That's what I think he's thinking about. I think you need to see him throughout this year, though.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a double-edged sword. If you asked me, would I roll the dice $15 million a year? No, because the injury is still fresh enough in my mind, and it's a tough injury to fully come back from. That would be my worry. The problem is, Rich, you say you need to see him for this year. Say you don't sign Porter, or say you trade Porter because you really believe in Samuel. And then say Samuel has like a baller first team or second team all-pro year. Guess what? You're left having to decide whether you want to pay Asante Samuel Jr. about $29, $30 million a year. And one thing I'll stick to my guns on is this franchise historically has just shown that they do not value corner the way they value disruptive positions along the front seven.
Yeah, and they've proven that, especially with the Nick Herbig deal. Back out to the phone lines. Let's go out to Nunzio and Braddock. How you doing, Nunzio?
Gentlemen, good evening. Hey, about the Steeler quarterback situation, whoever does better this next preseason game is going to be on the team. The loser will be on the practice squad for the rest of the year.
Nunzio, appreciate the call.
Nunzio, you're not going to sneak Drew Aller through to the practice squad. He's going to get plucked immediately.
That'll never happen.
It's just not happening. Drew Aller's on the team. Like, it's solely a matter of if Will Howard plays well enough to either get them to reconsider their position on Mason Rudolph as an entrenched backup, or Will Howard plays really well and they just have to keep 4 because they don't think they can sneak him through. If he puts 3 good preseason games on tape, Rich, you know this as well as I do, he would get taken the minute they tried to sneak him through.
Will Howard or Drew Aller?
Will Howard. I mean, Drew.
Yeah.
I don't even consider Drew Aller as like part of this discussion. If this is a redshirt year for him, which it is, he's on the team. He's got a scholarship, so to speak. Like
he's the third quarterback.
He's not going anywhere.
No.
Yes, exactly.
No doubt about it. They're not going to waste a third-round pick, and McCarthy is high on him. I thought he was a first-rounder, so there's no question about that. I think you and I have talked about this since April. Drew Aller and May, whenever Aaron Rodgers signed, maybe it was June, whatever it was. That it's Aaron Rodgers and Drew Aller are 2 quarterbacks that are definitely on this team. Now it's 2 quarterbacks fighting for 1 spot unless they keep 4. Is there any part of you that can talk yourself into the Steelers keeping 4 quarterbacks?
I don't think there's a utility to it, and that's just maybe fatalistic on my part. And I know people have told me, hey, Chris, this isn't how the Rooneys do business. They want a good veteran backup. Fine. I'm telling you how I would do business. if Rodgers goes down, I just did not see enough from Rudolph last year when he had to come in relief to think that this season could be salvaged if it's more than like a game here or there. And Rodgers might, who knows? I mean, he's one hit away from a season ender or a high ankle sprain, anything, like any player is. I would just want to get some sort of data point on Will Howard as my backup quarterback. Drew Aller's not supposed to play at all this year. I would only keep 3. I would be very open to trading Mason Rudolph here and just going with the young guys. I think that's the very simple case. Figure out what you do or don't have with Howard. Draft a guy next year if you don't think you have much with Will Howard, and that guy duels with Drew Aller to try to win the starting job.
Here's the thing. If you don't keep Howard, then you only have one quarterback basically next year, unless you can somehow re-sign Rudolph, which I'd imagine you would. But you look at a guy like Howard. He was drafted in the 6th round. I mean, I'm not going to say the Will Howards of the world. There's many of those guys out there. I mean, he has been impressive in practices, and he's a coachable kid, and he acts like a coach out there on the field. But couldn't you find a guy that's comparable to him in the first 3 rounds of next year's draft?
Well, no, I think you should be looking at a first-round pick in next year's draft.
No matter
at
what,
quarterback.
even if they think Aller could be the guy next year.
Yes. What are they? Well, hold on, Rich. Like, again, this is where I feel like people make big leaps and assumptions, and I get frustrated. We don't think that they want Drew Aller to play this year. You would agree with me, right?
100%
Like, they want this to be a learning year.
Yeah.
So how could you know from Drew Aller basically doing classroom work and preseason work that he's your guy? They can say it all they want. They said before they drafted Drew.
Quarterback guru. Can he see this?
Okay, but he.
Right?
Okay, but he said that he would have drafted Will Howard a lot earlier if he had been on the job when Will Howard was draft eligible. Then he went out like weeks later and drafted Drew Aller in the 3rd round before anyone else had a chance to grab him. What's to say he's not going to look at that guy and say, I can do better with a first-round pick? I think if you're a quarterback guru, you want the most material possible to work with. And I think there's guys who are going to come out this year in the draft who are going to be better than Aller prospect-wise. Also, have to consider this. McCarthy might think one thing. Who makes their draft board, though? Who grades all these players out? It's not Mike McCarthy. It's Andy Weidel. And who knows what kind of a grade Andy Weidel actually had on Drew Aller? We don't know.
All right, we got to take a break. Back with more coming up next. Stay right there. All right, welcome back. Not a lot of time left, Chris, but I have one question for you. Tomorrow, does Dylan Cook have to prove something? Is there a chance that Broderick Jones can beat him out for that starting right tackle job?
Man, Rich, for some reason when you said I have got one question for you, I thought you were going to say, do you smell what The Rock is cooking or something like that. I think Dylan Cook is still going to be their guy. I think the Jones subplot of their offensive line is like something that is very intriguing to watch, though. If he continues to play like a man with something to prove and Ihanachor continues to be hurt, I don't know. They could go with pedigree.
Yeah. All right, thanks a lot, Chris. We'll see you next week, and we'll see you guys on KDKA News in just a couple minutes.